Welcome to the capital.
You look like you shouldn't be here.
I shouldn't, but I'm your mentor.
A rebel.
What aspect of this adaptation did you feel if we nail this, everything else will fall into place?
I think it's the character journey. We have to get people behind Snow in the beginning. Like, that's the big challenge, because people are thinking he's the villain because he's the antagonist of the other films. Like, how do we get people behind him, rooting for him, and then to make that transition believable? I think that was the thing that we all thought we have to work the hardest on it. And if we succeed there, then it will be really, really good.
I would say also being able to pull off the songs. When you say it's a Hunger Games movie and they're singing, you know, that's not just like a natural progression, even though music has always been a big part of the movies. But the idea that a character is going to actually get up there and sing to you and sing to an audience in a Hunger Games film is a big leap to take. Either that is going to be like an unbearable moment or it's going to be an amazing moment. But seeing her up on that stage and knowing the way that she can just knock these performances out of the park, that was the moment of like, okay, actually, we might pull it off.
Can't take my charm, can't take my humor.
Whose character design was tough to nail, but it felt like a relief after you got it?
A bit of like Lucy Gray's reaping dress, because there is so much dialogue about it in the books, you know, that's supposed to be this lineage piece that her mother's handed down to her, and it's really sacred and special to her. And the skirt is actually 3 different layers of different fabrics to get some sheen underneath and a lot of movement and durability. And then the top is lots of yardage of tulle, because it does have a little bit of give, and we could get that gradation of color to represent the rainbow that's spoken about in the book. And Rachel is quite petite, so it is figuring out what's not going to overtake her, and then considering that she's a performer, so it can have a bit of this flash, but I needed to age it all down to look like it has had a lot of life and been through a lot of things. And then maybe another one would be the school uniforms. I knew the environments we were going to shoot in that were very stark and very gray. And this, I felt, was an opportunity where I can use red, because I do like the idea of seeing this sea of red move up the stairs, you know, into the academy, and the sea of red in the classrooms. And I wanted to have a genderless feel. I didn't want girls in skirts and boys in pants. I just wanted everyone to be uniformed. And it just then shows again the level of the Capitol, where you're one of millions. We don't really care about you. You're my little army of people. Get in line and do your job.
The Hunger Games, they're to punish the districts. Those tributes don't have a choice.
Were there any films or moments in history that you used as inspiration for this prequel?
Most of the films that we referenced when we had the opportunity to do a period piece to the original stories and films, so close to the war that kind of originated this world, you know, we decided to focus on kind of like Reconstruction era Berlin as a visual inspiration. So looking at like Berlin in like 45, 46, 47, you know, when everything started to rebuild, where you have the rubble, the rebuilding of old buildings, the building of new buildings. We looked at a lot of films like that, you know, whether it's The Third Man or, you know, Berlin Year One, things like that. But a lot of that was for sort of reference of kind of post-war Europe.
Vienna doesn't really look any worse than a lot of other European cities. Bombed about a bit.
Talk about how Tom Blyth was perfect to play the character of a young President Snow.
I wanted somebody that you could sort of see how, oh, right, okay, I think this guy could become physically like Donald Sutherland in 65 years, and part of that is the big blue eyes. The other thing that I thought was really important in connecting the two, right, is that Donald is one of the most sophisticated and intelligent people and performers that I know. And so I needed somebody that, you know, could present the same way, the sort of same sense of control, intelligence, sophistication, education, all of that. Tom really had that. But Tom is also just a fantastic actor. He's Juilliard trained. He's really into his craft. I just knew that he was going to be able to play all the facets that we needed for this character's journey.
Everything is about winning. If not the games now, then the crowd.
Talk about the journey of casting Rachel Zegler for the character of Lucy.
For me, it started with the singing. I had seen her in West Side Story and was really impressed with her performance. And so when it came time and we started to cast, she was at the very top of my list. She was actually my first choice.
She loved the books. She loved the movies. She'd already read this book. She was very into it. And the only thing that was holding her back was the fact that she had been stranded in London on Snow White, an effects-heavy COVID precaution show, so that you're kind of living in London in a lot of isolation. And she just felt like she could not go from that straight into another show. Then we were still looking for our Sejanus. Josh Rivera comes in and gives this incredible performance. I didn't know he was her boyfriend. So we cast him, and then all of a sudden we get a call from Rachel's agent saying, like, Rachel's starting to reconsider, are you guys still interested? And we were like, yeah, very.
There was never really an official audition. The sort of only test we had was actually a chemistry test between her and Tom. And she and I had maybe an hour-long conversation before we did this chemistry test, and I talked a lot about Lucy as a character and the many facets of her and how she's charismatic and she's a performer and she knows how to sort of use her sexuality to maybe manipulate. We started to talk a little bit about the accent. I gave her the reference of Sissy Spacek in Coal Miner's Daughter to take a look at. I also asked her to sing an a cappella version of the song Wildwood Flower, which is one of my favorites from the sort of era that we pulled the kind of tone of music from, the 20s and 30s in Appalachia, the Carter family. And she did this beautiful, beautiful version, a cappella, and sang it to Tom.
You could just see from the moment that she starts to sing, the way that he can't take his eyes off of her. Like, they had chemistry on Zoom. And when she sings, you can't help but be kind of stunned to hear that voice.
And you just knew it was going to work. It was like she got the tone of the music, she got the emotion. We did a scene with the two of them at the zoo. She got the sort of manipulation, the showmanship, a little bit of the mystery, a little bit of the mercurial nature of her. And we just knew that she was perfect for the role.
If you can trust anyone in this world, you can trust me.
What conversations did you have with Viola Davis to create the screen version of Dr. Volumina Gaul?
She was my first choice to play Dr. Gaul. I think she's one of the best actors to ever live. We had long conversations about the thematics of the original stories, the thematics of this story, where her character stands within the themes. She's the one who's kind of grooming young Snow toward the sort of dark way of thinking that we're all just savage and vicious and need to be ruled with an iron fist.
See how quickly civilization disappears?
So part of our conversation is, you're not trying to do evil. You believe this wholeheartedly, this philosophy, and therefore you think that the government needs to run this way because that's like what needs to happen for the best of the people. And then in the creation of the sort of feel of the character, right? Part of what Suzanne had done was written the antagonist of the story as a little quirkier, a little stranger, and as somebody who finds kind of joy in the creativity of her job. And even though it seems sort of sinister, she finds a lot of joy in it. So there's at times kind of a happiness and a mischievousness and a playfulness to the things that she's doing. And strangely, my reference for her was Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka. What was kind of genius about that movie and about his performance is that he lives in such a fun world and has such joy in the creations, but there was this sinister kind of underpinning to everything that he was doing. And so we talked a lot about that, and I think that informed some of her performance. It certainly informed her hair, makeup, the costumes. And so I remember the first day she kind of came out and she was in the costume. She came out in front of an audience of, the Academy students to give this speech, and she just nailed it. The gravitas of her performance, the sort of strangeness, the like slight oddity to the way she behaves and the little giggle and her use of the rhymes that Suzanne wrote. It was, she nailed it.
I won't be around forever after all.
What was it like to experience Viola Davis portraying Dr. Gaul?
I mean, I'm blown away by her and also her hair and makeup team. That she just chameleons into, I joke, I'm like, she could play 25 and 100. It's like, she just takes on whatever the character is, and she just is completely professional, is up for anything. And it was a joy. It was really a wonderful experience to work with her. And she just completely transformed into Dr. Gaul with this little evil giggle and the twinkle in her eye. And it was really fulfilling to see that.
The thing that I think put everybody at ease and that just makes me admire her even more, she'll get up and give like one incredible take after another. But then if she like stumbles on a word or doesn't like the way that she's done something, she will like get all mad at herself, maybe a little profanity. That was awful. That was just terrible. Let's do it again. She's as hard on herself, as demanding of herself as any young actor is. Like, there's no phoning it in going on.
I want my enemies to see a rainbow of destruction.
Francis, you've directed music videos for iconic pop divas like Beyonce, Britney Spears, J-Lo, Janet, Lady Gaga. The list goes on, but now you have Lucy. How did your music video background help you direct the performance sequences in this film?
Where it helped was when we have scenes and I can understand the structure of the song. I could sort of plot out how a sequence could play, while she's singing a song based on verses, choruses, things like that. So on the day, I was able to quite easily organize the breakdown of where she's going to be when she's singing this, right? There's a sequence that we don't want to spoil with her and the snakes, but it's like, take some time to get up this kind of slab of concrete, get to the top, turn around, where's the big sort of climactic moment, and sort of create that little build with choreography based on the structure of the song. I think that definitely kind of came from doing so many music videos.
You're as pure as the driven snow.
What do you think is the biggest thematic difference between the original Hunger Games films and this incredible prequel?
In the original movies, Suzanne, who's a very theme-driven, thoughtful author, wanted to explore the consequences of violence. When is war just? But what is the cost, whether it is just or not, on the people it touches? And in this movie, she was exploring a very different theme, which is really how does our perception of ourselves as human beings reflect the government that we think we want and need.
It's essential to accept what human beings are and what it takes to control them.
From a costuming perspective, how did you incorporate thematic differences between the original films and this prequel?
For this film, because it is so many decades before the last films that we saw, we did lean into this aesthetic of it being post-war. So it is 1940s and 1950s. And also we really wanted to show that Panem and the capital weren't always this excessive and this outlandish. And it's like us as a society, we've progressed through all these decades. And looking at the 40s and 50s, we're much more a contained, conservative, by the book kind of society. So that's what we tried to show, especially in the capital.
I have a fan theory question. Is the character Tigris in this prequel the same Tigris we meet in Mockingjay?
Oh, it's 100% her. What's interesting about Tigris is if you look and think about this Tigris with how warm she was and how much love she had for him and how she fought for him to stay good, you could understand how 65 years later, seeing the person he's turned into, how that cousin who once loved him would aid in his assassination.
I'm here to kill him.
Because it's like those characters are still really thematically linked.
Imagine it was your name that they pulled and you had been ripped from your home. I just want to know that somebody still cared about me out here.
Did you include any Easter eggs within the costume designs of this prequel that tie back to the original Hunger Games films?
Yeah, I do say I like to do a few little Easter eggs, or even if it's selfishly for, for just me. But, it was like the thing with Lucy Gray's corset. I wanted to tie into Katniss Everdeen, and the blue Mockingjay dress I made for her is the same corset-shaped top. And then did a hand painting of Katniss flowers and primrose flowers on the bodice. So again, we can have this tie-in. And then like with Tigris, I wanted to lean in and pay respects to the very first film. So you'll see that there's a similarity in our suit Effie wore, but we're exaggerating the shape much more and making it much more severe. And, we did the same thing with the roses for President Snow always has this, the boutonniere rose. So pulling that from Donald's character and bringing that in. So there are little things that we did place into the film to help the fans have these little, pinpoints they could see.
From a director's perspective, what was your favorite day on set?
There's a scene near the end in the forest, and it's the moment we as an audience get to watch Snow turn. Tom's performance was so good, and there's something that I find so satisfying about watching the transformation of a character without dialogue, without explanation, and seeing him change from the guy you thought he was to the guy he's going to become. And that was all Tom, which was fantastic to just watch. And also to know the math of what we were doing with the rest of the script was going to lead up to this moment and work. That was really exciting for me. So I think that's probably one of my favorite days.